The Soul Sovereignty podcast is a deep dive into the core wounds and deeply embedded subconscious beliefs that reside within the collective psyche so that you can reclaim your sovereignty and embody your power to experience freedom in your relationships. It is hosted by Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Coach. Visit thepathtosovereignty.com to enter a portal of transformation.
The fear of being alone. That's the topic that we're going to dive into today with myself, Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Coach, and special guest, Sara Stansberry, who really helps women, particularly who are coming out of midlife, create a new second life, a life that's more honest, a life that's more real, a life that's more vulnerable. And based on her own experience of going through a divorce and financial pressure and really recognizing codependency, which is something I also specialize in, we decided to focus on how that shows up in the fear of being alone. Because often codependency, we talk about how it shows up in lack of emotional boundaries or silencing your truth. But we don't talk enough about the fear of being alone, which in my personal experience and in working with clients is what keeps people doing what they're doing and engaging in the codependent patterns of not fully expressing themselves. And it's this deep fear of being alone that exists even beyond a relationship. So let's just love for us to touch on that too. But this deep fear of being alone that feels really real in a society that fosters aloneness and fosters this idea of independence rather than interdependence. And yet the deeper truth is that our fear of being alone can actually create even more aloneness because we're not in union with ourselves. So I'd love for us to start diving in. I'm happy to have you here, Sara. And I'd love for us to start diving into how we even define this in relationship and how it shows up.
Yeah. I mean, first thing I want to point out is that our fear of being alone is very valid because we were meant and created, I believe, for connection. And so you've got on a soul level, right? We were made for connection. We want to be connected to other people. What we miss sometimes in that is that needs to be a connection with ourselves first. But we're not really taught that part. We're, taught, be in relationship with other people, which is good, but not the whole picture. And then I think innately there's a tribal desire too, right? For us to be connected because, back in the day, if you were not, accepted as a part of your society, then you were cast out. And when you get cast out, you become vulnerable. You become vulnerable to, lack of sustenance, like food or things like that. You become vulnerable to a threat, like a physical threat. And so I think this desire, is a good one. It's not necessarily a bad thing to want to have relationships and stay in those relationships, right? It's when the relationships are asking you to give up part of yourself to stay in them where the damage comes, right? And it's where we tend to lose ourselves. We can lose ourselves very easily. I think I love your pillars, your doorways. What's your framework? Sorry.
For sovereignty itself, or
well, I was thinking about grief, grieving the parts of yourself that you lose as you slowly, parts of yourself begin to evaporate because you're giving them away in order to maintain relationship, right? And there's like a grief there that I know that you've discussed before in the past. So that's what I was referring to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate with that experience of one of my biggest wake up moments was lying next to an ex-partner and realizing that I felt more alone next to him than I did when I was actually alone. Because I was giving parts of myself away, or I was denying parts of me, parts of myself, parts of my truth to be in the relationship. And so the reality is I was more alone in partnership than actually physically being alone. And I think that's really common.
I wrote along, I had a series of several years that I wrote about divorce, my first blog. And I wrote, there's nothing as quite as lonely as being in a lonely marriage. And, I got so much feedback on that because I think it's such a universal experience. I think a lot of women, especially, I think men too. I've met many men who have felt very alone in their relationships. So it's not something that's just, special that's held for us women. I think that, but yeah, it's like, but it goes to beyond your romantic relationships. I think when you're in a family, where you're not seen or valued for what you bring to that family, I think that can feel very lonely.
Or if they don't understand you.
Right. Well, I mean, if they don't understand you, or they don't really want to understand you, not that they're bad people, but maybe they don't have the capacity to begin to understand you because there are so many things going on in the dynamic of the family that doesn't allow for individuals to emerge, I think a lot of us experience that too. So in all of our relationships, we long for, we were created for, we desire this connection. And yet we don't get it, right? Like, so we settle for the kind of the sloppy alternative, right? Which is, I also call it, I don't know if you curse on this podcast, so I don't want to
cursing is fine.
Okay. I call it the fucking faker. Like, right. The fucking faker. Like it's in essence, when okay. There's a genuine version of something and there's the fucking faker version of something. And for every genuine, for every time there's something genuine love, genuine connection, genuine empathy, like all of the things that we're looking for in a healthy relationship, right? There's the opposite of that looks like it, but it's really it's a sloppy alternative, right? It's a fucking faker. And so the genuine connection that we seek is, I'm in this relationship, be it a family, be it a romantic partner, be it a friendship, and I am seen and valued and heard in this relationship as an individual. And then, we are stronger together. I feel accepted. I feel loved. That's what we crave. But a lot of times, because guess what? Relationships require other people, right? And other people, and we ourselves are flawed and broken and hurt. And so we don't always act in our truest, fullest selves. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have people who are capable of doing that. And sometimes people are not capable of doing that just because of the work that they've chosen to do in their lives. And so we will settle for the fucking faker because we want it, right? We know we want it, but we're not getting it. I don't feel loved. I'm feeling like, I'm feeling like I'm not seen In fact, I'm feeling like I'm devalued in this relationship. I feel like my needs aren't even important, that nobody even considers my needs or considers me at all. They're only considering me for what I can make them, what I can do for them, how I can make them feel.
Which is pretty common, actually, for a lot
It's
of
very
people to
common.
feel that way of like,
it's very common.
do you actually love me, who I am as a soul, or do you love how I make you feel, the ways in which
That's
I
right.
serve, the idea you might have, right? And
That's
a
right.
lot of people struggle with feeling invisible, men and women. Men, because it's like, well, you just want me to be this version of a man. You just want me to provide. You just want me, versus what if I show up and I want to cry? What if I show up in being hurt? Or a woman, you just want me to be happy and alive all the time, but what if I have my own anger? Can you also see me through that? And can you love all of me, not just these parts that are pretty and boxed up with a little bow on top? Can you love all of me?
Right.
And that's what a lot of people struggle with. And so what I just want to point out, what I've heard you say, is that not only does the fear of being alone keep people in a relationship that maybe isn't serving them anymore? But what I also heard you say is that people then will settle or enter into a relationship for this kind of fake version because they really want that thing, but this is the way to have it right now, which is also not seeing or loving that person for who they are. It's also using them.
Exactly. Or you might not know that it's even possible. Right? I mean, like, you really might not even understand that this connection that your soul is really desiring is really even possible, because maybe you've never had anybody in your life to show you that kind of connection, which is also very common.
But you can actually have what you want.
That you can actually have what you want, what you're like, that like relationships don't have to look the way they looked in whatever family of origin that you came from, because that's what we know, right? We only know what we know. We can't know any more than that. And we can only know what is possible. That's the key to really why I do the work that I do, because I can remember when I was going through my codependency healing, I was in the very, beginning stages of it. I had one person in my life who was a little bit ahead of me on the game. And she was a lifeline, like a lifeline, because whenever I was at a crossroads and I didn't, was it okay to stand up for myself? Was it okay to say what I was really feeling? Is it okay to say, no, I can't do that? Is it okay to say no after I'd already said yes? All of those things that you're faced with, like as you are uncovering your true wants, needs, and desires and whatnot. I had somebody I could call to be like, what do I do? I said I was going to bake all these cupcakes for the PTA, and I just can't, or I'm just not going to. I don't have anything left in the tank. I can't do it. What do I do? I mean, I was literally that granular with her. But I had somebody to kind of show me the way, right? And so I feel like, the work that I do, I hope to show people like, you can do it, right? It's okay. Here's your permission slip that it's okay to want what you want, and that you deserve to have the thing that your soul craves. And it's really just okay, because we're just not taught.
Well, certainly not taught, as a women in particular, to know our own desire, much less to honor or speak or act on that desire. I was just writing this week on a lot of what I write about is this split between the holy and the whore, and this demonization of a woman's desire. And yes, we could say sexual desire, but it's all desire, because really when you desire, what you're saying is, I have a self And this self has its own feeling, its own need, its own desire. And for me to desire for myself is to say, I am my own person and I'm worthy and I'm just as equal to you. I'm just as good as you. And that's exactly what women were told historically that they could not be or could not have. And so this desire piece, I love how we're weaving it in, how I'm hearing you weave it into the fear of being alone, because it's true that many women in particular, men too, but especially women historically, enter into a relationship because, well, he chose me, or enter into a relationship because it's right there, because it's convenient, because they want a relationship and here's this person right in front of them, versus do I choose this? Is this what I want? Because if
That's
not,
right.
if those questions aren't being asked and you quote fall into a relationship, then very quickly, if that soul connection is not being developed with a partner, you're going to feel alone or be afraid of being alone by ending this thing that isn't really serving, that you don't really want. And then,
and then on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. And then you wake up and you're like, what happened? Like, what's going on here? I'm not connected to this person. Right. But like you said, it's not that the other person necessarily is doing something wrong or there's something wrong with that other person. It's you have also helped create this situation by entering in this relationship that has is serving you in some way too, which is to not feel lonely, to have somebody to go to the movies with or whatever, whatever that means. But that means to you, right? Like whatever convenience to you. But then in some, friendships and romantic relationships, that's the case. I mean, your family of origin, you don't choose. That's, that's what you're, born into. And that's what you learn from. That's where you've learned how to do relationship. But the great thing about relationships, this is what I love about relationship, is that it's really the only way to really grow yourself. I mean, tell you, when we are in relationship, you're just in a growth pattern. Like
if you choose to grow, we should specify.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I am, I'll put a caveat of, I believe that your listeners are probably choosing to grow, as mine are as well. So I'll put that caveat. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. It is if you choose to grow, but,
because sometimes it is easier to just kind of bury the head and say, oh, I don't want to see that. I don't want to grow there. Oh no. Because of the fear of being alone, or because of the fear of not having enough, or because a million fears can sometimes create that. I don't actually want to go from this. I don't want to learn from this. I don't want to go there. I don't want to see this, which is okay temporarily. If you truly do not have the resources in the moment, it's okay.
That's right.
And also to come back when you do, and also to make sure that you're still being honest with yourself, because a lot of this, as you brought up at the beginning, is really about your relationship with yourself will determine the quality of your relationship with everyone else in your life.
Right. That's right.
And so that ability to at least be honest, I say this to my clients a lot. I say, okay, when we're going in, we're discovering the deep soul truth, releasing what's not the truth. Part of it is when you start to connect that inner voice, that inner knowing. I'm not saying go tell everybody. I'm not saying go shout it to the world. I'm not saying even go tell your partner or your family member or your best friend. But to have the capacity to bring that deep truth, even if it's scary or raw or I've been pushing this down for so long, to just bring it up to yourself, to bring it up so that you are seeing you. So that you are hearing you, so that you are in this relationship with you. And then if you choose consciously to bring that into a relationship, beautiful. But that it's all about, are you being honest with yourself? And are you willing to face what is coming up inside of you? Because the reality is also that if we're stuffing down, as we started to talk about before we hit the record button, if you're stuffing down these internal sensations and emotions and experiences, then you're not going to be able to have the kind of connection you want anyway. And so the aloneness might be coming from your own hiding of who you are.
Yep. 100%. I think I mentioned, before we started this conversation, that when you're disconnected from how you're feeling, you're disconnected from yourself. And I'm not talking about what you think about things, right? Anybody on the street can tell you what they think about something. Understanding really how you feel about something is, first of all, as women, we're taught to ignore that because sometimes our feelings are very inconvenient, right, for the others around us. And so you are disconnected from yourself if you are disconnected from your feelings. And the next step is your desires, your wants, your needs. We're also taught as women that we shouldn't have desires, wants, and needs. And so I when I first started doing this work, I would kind of get myself a little bit into a guilt trip because I was like, well, what do I need? Well, I need a break. I need a break from the kids. I need to take a nap. I shouldn't need that. I should need that. I mean, I had all these ideas about what it was I should need or should want. And what was happening internally was different than the ideas I had about what that should look like. And let me tell you, it was kind of a shit show in there. You know what I mean? Like a battle, like a battle of the wills a little bit. And, I feel like acceptance really is our best friend. And so when you talk about allowing things to come up that, like whatever it is, not that you have to discuss it, like you said, with anybody else, but just allowing something to come up and accepting it for what it is. I mean, that's grace right there, right? Because it's like, wow, I'm really angry about this. I wish I weren't angry about this. I wish I could be a loving human being and look at this other person across from me as, another human being that, is just like me, but I'm struggling with that right now. Right now, I am angry and I, want to scream at them or lash out or whatever it is. And I think just acknowledging the fact that, okay, this is here. And I'm not going to act out on it, but I'm also not going to squash it into oblivion, right? Because it will come out somewhere.
And it will create resentment between,
it comes out somewhere. Yeah.
We hide it. And then we just have this resentment. We have this unspoken tension. We're separating. We don't feel as intimate. We don't feel as close. Then we feel alone because there's all this energetic space. And the reality is, if we just say, even if I just recently did a podcast episode on the biggest mistake people really make in relationship. And one of it is hiding this kind of thing and saying, oh, I'm okay. When the truth is, all you have to say is, it doesn't have to be an attack, it doesn't have to be blame, it doesn't have to come out as anger. It could be, I'm having a really hard time because inside I'm feeling some anger, I'm feeling triggered, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet. And I love you and I don't want to feel this way, but I've got to be with what's coming up for me. It can just be that simple, but we have to develop that capacity to notice what we're feeling.
Yep.
To bring it to consciousness and not go into a habitual response of shutting it down, which is also very common. I used to be the queen of that.
Yeah.
And then voicing it to oneself and then clearing the throat, being able to voice it to another without projection, without demand, while recognizing their choice. I mean, we say this is so simple. Speak your truth. It's not really as simple as we make it sound.
It's not. First of all, I have to decide. I mean, okay, so there are so many things I want to riff on here. The first one, though, comes up, and this was my biggest problem. I had no tools. Not only did I not know how I felt about anything, I didn't have tools to communicate that. I still struggle because you're heated in the motion in the moment. You've got when you have strong emotions going on, you revert, right? You instantly revert back to, your archaic practices in terms of how you express yourself. That just is what happens. And part of the reason I didn't ever want to voice how I was feeling is because I did not have tools to do it kindly. And I don't feel like that's something that we're taught either. And I didn't want to be, I'm like, well, I don't like, this is a person that I love. Like, I don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And this is where, my therapist would say what you mean, but don't say it mean. Right. And I'd be like, I don't even know how to not say it mean. Like, I'm pretty blunt anyway, which is a gift and a curse. Like, everybody's strongest gifts can also be a little bit of a twang there. But I do think that developing tools for yourself, or even like sometimes I just have like kind of one-liners that I use as placeholders until I can really figure out what I need to say or what I want to say, that are kind of generic, that allow me to have express that there's something happening inside of me, but that I don't know what it is yet. Sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out how you're actually feeling or what you really need.
And just
It's
saying
hard.
that, just saying something is happening and
That's
I don't
right.
know what it is yet,
I don't
already
know.
creates connection versus disconnection.
That's right.
And one of the things I want to start to tie together is that even if you just place a hand on your heart and just come into the heart, right there, we can shift the energetic. Right there, it's that grace for oneself, the grace, compassion for the experience. And we started to talk about this earlier, but this capacity to have compassion and grace, to notice what one is feeling, is part of how we develop the deep relationship and connection with self, which is what we have to develop to not have the fear of being alone rule our choices.
That's right. That's right.
Because when we're in that fear, anytime we're in fear, but I would say, let's talk about this one specifically. We're in that fear. I don't want to be alone. So I'm going to hush this up. I'm going to push that down. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to end the relationship. I'm not going to not. It's suppress, repress, suppress, repress, create separation. More and more aloneness is actually happening, both within oneself and in the partnership, versus how do I create connection? Okay, so I have a fear of being alone. Let me acknowledge it. How do I create connection? One, with myself. Two, with the other. How do I then not feel alone right now? What do I need to feel connected to myself?
Yes.
And then to create connection with the other. And right there, we're shifting it from fear-driven to connection-driven to truth-driven. Just that.
Yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. You're so right. And, I think about, we do this and relate, like, there's so many things I was thinking about as you were talking. The first was like, subconsciously, if you're in constant fear, that you're going to lose the relationship, guess what? That's what you're focused on.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to get.
Yep.
Because that's what you're focused on. If you can switch to not, the driver not being, I don't want to lose this, to I want to connect with this. I mean, think about how you can change the world with that attitude and that state of mind.
That ripple effect.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So let's talk about how people can develop more of this connection. We've talked about one, coming into tune with their needs, feelings, and desires. Huge piece. You've talked about having grace and compassion for when an emotion arises. You've talked about putting voice to something's happening, even if I don't know what it is yet. And I can get back to you on that, but you need to know something's happening inside, or whatever that might be. So what are some other ways that people can foster this sense of connection with themselves, that and or with a person, family member, intimate partner, or otherwise, so that this fear of aloneness isn't the driving force?
Well, the first thing is, and I think I'll kind of bring in some of what we talked about here before we started the recording. I think that the first thing is to develop connection with yourself, because really all of the things, yes, we were wired for connection. Yes, that is a soul driven desire. Yes, it's a survival desire, right? It's like on many different levels, it's a very legitimate thing. However, if we're not connected fully to ourselves, then it's going to be really hard to connect with somebody else. And that goes in layers too. Like, it's not just like, I'm connected to myself, therefore I'm done with this work. That's not, in my experience, that's not how it works. So, first of all, it's an everlasting evolution. Knowing that and understanding that, that's when you're going in, I think, is really the most important thing. Then, I think I mentioned before, I have a process of creative destruction that I take my clients through, that I went through myself. It's very, very simple. However, it helps you kind of reframe a little bit. There are a series of 3 questions that I ask myself whenever there is a situation that either a situation has happened and I am not really acting out of my greatest and highest self. It's one time that I employ these questions. Another time would be like, if I'm in a circumstance and I realize like I'm giving part of my power away for whatever reason. It could just be as simple as saying yes when I really want to say no. It could be as simple as not speaking up when I'm not okay with what's happening in the room. And that is the first question of the process is, how do I feel? Right. And when you can understand how you're really feeling, when you can put your hand on your heart, when you can get heart centered, exactly like you talked about, there are many ways you can do this. You can journal, you can think, you can just think if you need to, you can write. I'm a crazy user of the notes app on my phone because it's always with me. And I'm just like, like I can be in a situation, just be like, trying to explore my feelings. So how do I feel? The second part is, what do I need? And the third, of course, is, who do I want to be in this moment? Because we do have a choice of how we want to show up and who we choose to be. And you get to make that choice, a new choice every minute of every day. You don't just, you don't have to keep going and down a path of fear.
The choice piece, right? You're bringing choice versus a habitual response. Right. You're saying, wait, what is actually true here now?
That's right.
To be able to create that connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so, it's a series of questions, like I said, simple, not so simple, where when I first started the work, it could take me, like I said, like a week. Something would happen and I didn't know how I felt about anything. And so it could take me a week to figure out the answer to those questions, right? But as you exercise the muscle, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And I could eventually just kind of do it as I was, making my kids' lunches or throughout my day. But, it's a way to kind of stop what's happening, because if awareness, of course, that, all right, I'm in fear. I want to be in connection. How do I shift this? And I think that it can become rote and just a part of your daily life.
I was smiling because I just have to say, we're in such an on-demand culture where you can like click a button and everything arrives.
Oh,
and
so
I've
right.
noticed that people expect the same thing in self-inquiry, right? Of like, I ask myself how I should feel and I should know right away. I ask myself
Right
what
now.
I should want. I should know immediately. But the reality is that when we're usually the immediate response is the conscious mind, not the subconscious, not necessarily the soul truth. It can be. When you've learned to attune to that, yes, it can happen right away, but it can take time. And sometimes no matter what, no matter how attuned you are, that answer is going to flow up in divine timing. And that could be a week, that could be a month, that could be a year, depending on what the question is.
That's right.
And that it's not an on demand. We're not demanding of the body. We're not demanding of the heart. We are not demanding of the self. We are in relationship. And there is a massive difference. We're showing up in relationship, not in a demand. We're not controlling. And the more control and demand we release, the more we soften and surrender into what is, with love and compassion and presence and acknowledgement, with self, with other, we can't help but be in connection.
That's right. That's right.
And so I want to say one more thing, and I know we need to start wrapping up for time's sake, which I feel like we could just talk and talk and talk, but I want to say something else about being alone. And then I want to give you a chance to say any final words, is that I know the fear of being alone, or actually the experience of being alone, was something I just grew up having and feeling all of the time. And I had such a deep, deep, deep feeling of being alone. And part of my healing from that was recognizing how impossible it actually is to be alone. When we tune into the reality, not the illusion of separation, but the reality that we are one with all things, that my body is Earth's body, that Earth's body is my body, that I am constantly bringing in air, I am full of the water of the world, the everything is connected. And the more I could tune into that portal of connection, which is my heart, that your heart is a portal to the union of everything. And the more we drop into that, it's almost impossible to feel alone. It doesn't mean that we don't still have, it'd be nice to have somebody around sometimes, or it doesn't mean that there might not be thoughts or feelings, but the aloneness itself goes away. That pain, the suffering that feeling can cause. My experience, having grown up with that and not knowing anything other, is gone. Because my internal state is so attuned to union, to divinity, to love. And love is union. And I think that we forget, because we live in such a society that has us think that we're these hyper independent beings and we can do things alone all the time, until anybody experiences a disaster, until anybody needs help, until you realize you can't even eat on your own. Actually, nothing we do is ever really alone, but this mindset. And so when we shift back to the reality of our experience in connection with the earth and all of life, I think that really shifts things for us. So I really wanted to say that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, and any other thoughts as we wrap up this conversation around the fear of being alone.
Well, I love your reminder that, our soul connection with not only our bodies and spirit, but also the universe and the world around us, right? I think that we are never alone, and we are fully held and supported. And that that knowledge is something that I have to practice, and that doesn't come naturally to me. And I think to a lot of people, it just doesn't. And so I love the reminder, because you are so, so right on point that way. And it's kind of what I mean when I talk about being connected to yourself, because honestly, even though we outsource, our health and well-being, right? You're the one that's responsible for your own health and well-being, not your partner, not your family, not your friend group, not whatever. It's you. You are responsible for your own health and well-being. And connecting with the universe and understanding that you're not alone, and seeking support from the divine, however you define that, um, is how you do that. And then when that has happened, you can bring it forth into your other relationships, and think about how fully you can show up in your other relationships and the difference that you can make in the world just by doing that one simple and difficult thing. I love it.
I feel like
Very
sharing
cool.
too, when we're this feeling of alone, in part because we're not really being vulnerable, really speaking the truth, really sharing, that there can be something as simple as in a partnership, or it can be a little different with family members. I think personally, I think that it can be two different things, but with a partner, especially, it's easier to just reach your hand out and place it on their heart and just take a moment for both of you to just come in your heart. There can be something so powerful about just taking a moment without words, coming into a moment of sacred space that can create connection without a single need to speak anything. Just that. If we could just do more of that, or to ourselves.
And really, how intimate is that, right? I mean, and to me, I see that would make for a very intimate moment. And I wish that more couples, I mean, operated that way, because it would really, I don't know, like I said, I think it can change the world. I think that, like my partner and I really, I'm not sure, we like when things aren't, things are getting heated, we'll touch each other, like just even a hand on an arm, like, hey, what's happening right now?
Touch.
Mhm. Touch is so powerful. So powerful. I've left with tools from this interview.
I know, it's great. I'm
I
so
love it.
enjoying this.
I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. And I want people to be, so I know we both have free offerings for people to really
Oh,
dive more
yeah.
into codependency. And I want you to talk
Mhm.
about yours, so that where they can find you, and you have a free
Yeah.
gift. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can find me at my website, sarastansberry.com. I think you're going to have the link in the show notes. And then I do have a free resource guide called Stepping Out of Codependency, that kind of, if you're interested in learning more about codependency and how you can step out of it, it is a great free resource with information about finances and relationships and boundaries and embodiment, and where you can get external support. The list of my favorite books that I've read, really everything soup to nuts, an overview of everything, the work that I did to start healing. And so I hope you can get there. I'll give you the links. You can put it in the show notes as well. I also write a weekly Substack called How to Blow Up Your Life, and you can find that on my website too. Yeah.
And that made me think about one thing we didn't talk about that I was thinking of when we started the conversation is financial sovereignty, or this fear of being alone connected to the money piece is a big one. And so, that fear of having to do it all, fear of having to handle it all financially also really is part of this fear of being alone for a lot of women in particular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially women that are in midlife. Like, so this is such a big conversation. Like, I don't know how much time we really have, but I didn't mention it because it's so big. I felt like I'm not sure we have enough time. And
we might have to do a follow-up conversation about that.
I would do it. Because I'm finding there is a little there. We have this generation, right? We've had a shift in the way that women, I believe, are thinking about money within our generation. Like I was really raised. Now, granted, I was raised kind of in the South, and like the women stay home with the children, but never because that's what all they can do. It was more of it was more of an attitude of, it's good to raise
wanting
your
to
kids,
be
right?
with your kids,
being home with the kids. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But nobody talks about the other side of that, which is then you're giving up your financial sovereignty to the breadwinner. And what does that do, right? So I've noticed a shift in the younger women I work with versus, the women who are my age or older. There's a shift, right? Because we've kind of gone through the women in their 40s and 50s, 60s and beyond really experienced that. They experienced they didn't work, they stayed home if they could, and they did, cared for the children, which is amazing. But they get to a point where the husband is gone or something happens and they're really left vulnerable financially. And what I'm noticing is the culture shifting. So it's almost like there's a pointing of a finger of like, how come you didn't take care of yourself that way? But was not in the wheelhouse in terms of the way that we were thinking. And so I do feel like there's so much to talk about in terms of how to protect yourself financially, even if you're not working and this is what you've chosen, with your partner. How to ensure that you've got a good prenup, how to ensure that you are doing what you need to do for yourself financially, and still taking care of yourself within the relationship, within the confines of the relationship. So, it's big stuff. It's so much. My mind's going a million miles an hour.
Yeah, we'll do a pause. We'll do a future episode.
Yeah.
I have one episode out on financial sovereignty, but it's a broader overview of financial sovereignty and how we actually reclaim that on a soul level and the history of that and then the really returning to an ancient understanding or soulful understanding of that. So I'd love to have a conversation around some of the specifics and ins and outs of how that applies, particularly in relationships. So we'll put a little pause. We'll stay tuned.
I would love that. Okay. I would love that. Because I work with a lot of women who coming out of marriages, they've never looked at their bank account. They don't even know how many accounts they have. They don't even know, and there is an aspect of financial responsibility. Just because you're not making the money doesn't mean you don't have the responsibility to understand what's going on there. So, and that you're not like, you don't deserve to know. That's what I didn't, I'm not making the money. So I don't really need, I feel like I shouldn't ask the questions. I shouldn't ask where our retirement account is. I shouldn't ask to see the statements. Like, whew.
Okay. There's so much there. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. There is.
So I really enjoyed it. I want to say too, for those of you who want to start diving into some of the financial pieces, emotional pieces, body pieces, I have a free 12 days of transformation course you can go to as well. So you've got two powerful resources. All the links are going to be below where you can really check out how you can start to apply this to your life. Because it's one thing to listen to an episode, get the information. It's another to, what does this mean for me? How do I think about this? What do I need to choose for myself? How do I bring this into how I live in my life and the choices I'm making? So hopefully we provided enough that you can start to take some of these practices into your relationships, and then also keep diving deeper to journey. And we'll have a part 2 on the financial piece. So stay tuned for that.
Perfect.
And yeah, I'm so grateful we got to have the conversation today, and
me too.
Looking forward to more. It's been really fruitful.
Thank you. And I just appreciate you having me on. I just love your work. And I mean, your heart is so just amazing, Jessica. I just really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to connect and get to know you. And yeah, we talked about this before, not to have a love fest at the end of the conversation, but there's not as much of that depth, people really walking the path and heart out there. When you turn on social media, it's just easy to get caught up in the flashing lights versus the people really walking the walk and doing the work. And it's really nice to see someone else and to connect with someone else who's really doing.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's what matters. That's what matters, is that, I when we are leading other people, we have to always start by leading ourselves first.
Of course.
And embodying what we teach. And then that frequency right there can lift other people into a new experience of themselves just by being in the frequency of somebody who's done it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.